This story happened in 2007, as far as I can remember. I was 11 back then, and my family and I went to Sri Lanka for our summer holidays. It was a normal vacation by visiting family there and enjoying the food. We were on a road trip with my uncle, auntie, and my cousin. We planned on visiting the temple, which was located on the southeast coast of Sri Lanka. We prayed, fed the holy cows there, and ate some really good temple food. My dad even cut his hair, as is tradition ritual when you're wishing someone the best of luck. So it was a pretty fun family day, as you say, with no complaints. It was starting to get a little dark, and by dusk, my uncle and my dad decided to look for a motel to stay for the night so we could get some rest before we had to head home the next day. They found a motel nearby the temple, but still out of the city, which was very dry as far as I can remember, and there was nothing but dry, dusty earth. Behind the building was a wheat field that led to nowhere, but the building was in good condition for its location and age. However, we got 2 rooms on the top floor on the 5th story, one for my family and the other one for my uncle and his family. Our room was pretty small, but enough for 5 people. There was 1 large bed and 1 single bed. Right in front of the large size bed was a dresser with a TV on it, and next to the large bed was the bathroom with a small window in it. After we got our rooms, I remember we went to the city for dinner and came back to the motel around 10 o'clock. My oldest sister, who was 19 back then, and my brother, who was 9, shared the large bed together, while my parents slept in the bed next to us. We fell asleep and were hoping to sleep through the night because we were all very exhausted from the heat. We knew we had to get up early the next day, so our mom told us that we must get to bed immediately. By about midnight, I can't remember exactly what time it was, but it was very dark. I heard a noise coming from the end of my bed, right in front of the dresser. Because of the moonlight faintly shining in, I could barely make it out. I saw my dad was taking something out of his wallet. I wasn't thinking much of it, but still was wondering why he had to do it at midnight. I fell back asleep and didn't think much of it. A few hours later, I was awoken again, this time by the terrifying noise and scream from my auntie's room next door. I looked to my left and saw that my parents weren't in their bed anymore. While my auntie was screaming and shouting next door, I suddenly saw my mom run back into our room, take off her wedding chain from her neck, and throw it under the bed. Now at this point you should know that a wedding chain is a wedding ring in our culture, which is a holy chain made from a lot of hard work and is extremely valuable. She went back to my auntie's room again, and I looked to my right and saw my brother and sister were also awake. I asked my sister what happened, but she didn't know what was going on and was trying to comfort us. I just know how scared and cold I was. All 3 of us started to tremble and shake with fear. After 5 minutes, my mom came in and gave us a hug. We weren't crying, but we were so incredibly scared, our hearts were beating out of our chests. I'm not sure how it is in the western parts, but we originally lived in Switzerland. However, I noticed that in places like Sri Lanka or anywhere in the southern parts of India, women tend to cry very loudly. As a child, this could be quite distressing. We weren't accustomed to such intense displays of emotion, especially when someone cried out in pain like my aunt did. Her crying made the situation even more unsettling, yet at that time, we didn't fully understand what was happening. After an hour, we fell back asleep because our mom told us to. In the early morning, my parents were awake and were talking about the incident last night. My mom started to tell the horror. By night, a burglar climbed up to my uncle's room on the top floor, right next to our room, and stole a $5,000 wedding chain from my auntie, and also the car key to our van. My uncle woke up because of a noise from the bathroom, investigated, and caught the burglar trying to flee out of the window. When he tried to grab him, the burglar fell out of the window to the ground and disappeared into the wheat field. They chased him through the wheat field, but couldn't find him. The guy escaped, and even the police couldn't find him. Thankfully, we got a second key for our van, packed up everything, and went directly home. Before that, My uncle wanted to make sure that the burglar hadn't left anything behind while running away, in hopes that we might find a clue. However, despite our efforts, we couldn't find anything. My auntie was sad and barely spoke while driving home because she was so traumatized by the incident. While we were driving home, my dad made sure he had everything and looked into his wallet and realized that a small picture of his father was missing, and so was his cash. That's when I realized that the man in front of the dresser wasn't my dad at midnight. It was the burglar himself. I don't want to know what would have happened if that guy realized that I was awake and looking at him. I'm glad it was dark so he couldn't see me, but it also freaks me out when I think about that it actually was the guy who took my auntie's wedding chain and the key of our van. Ever since then, I always make sure that the restroom window and the door to my hotel room is completely locked and deadbolted.